For years, farmer Caleb Holt struggled to save his failing orchard in rural Montana. Hiring a quiet veteran, he ignored town warnings. A day later, they're hiding from armed men in a barn, facing a past that threatens everything they hold dear. Hi everyone, welcome to Life Unveiled. Let's get started. Caleb Holt stood at the edge of his apple orchard, watching the sun rise over the rolling hills of rural Montana. At 55, his weathered hands and sun-creased face told the story of 25 years working the same 60 acres his grandfather had planted after the Great Depression. The orchard had been the pride of Willow Creek, but the last few years had been brutal. A blight had wiped out half his trees, and the big corporate farms nearby were undercutting his prices. Caleb had stuck to traditional methods, no pesticides, no shortcuts, because that's how his family had always done it. But tradition wasn't paying the bills. One more bad season, and he'd lose the land to the bank. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was his son, Ben, calling from Bozeman, where he was studying forestry at Montana State. "Dad, the scholarship didn't come through," Ben said, his voice tight. "I might have to take a semester off." Caleb rubbed his temple. Ben was the first Holt to go to college, dreaming of returning to modernize the orchard with sustainable practices. "We'll figure it out, son," Caleb said, though he had no idea how. After the call, he looked out at the orchard, the trees his grandfather had planted with his own hands. 3 generations of Holts had made this land work. Caleb wasn't going to be the one to let it go. That's when he saw the man walking down the dirt road that bordered his property. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a military duffel slung over one shoulder, the stranger moved with a purposeful stride Caleb recognized immediately. Growing up near an army base, he knew that walk, soldier through and through. The man stopped at the faded "Help Wanted" sign Caleb had nailed to a post a week ago. No one in town had applied. Most young folks were leaving Willow Creek for jobs in the city. Caleb approached, getting a better look. The man was in his late 30s, with close-cropped black hair, a faint scar across his jaw, and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His clothes were worn but clean, his posture rigid. "Morning," Caleb called. "You looking for work?" The man turned, assessing Caleb with a quick glance. "Yes, sir. Sign says you're hiring." His voice was steady, clipped. "I'm Caleb Holt. You got farm experience?" The man nodded. "Some. Grew up on a ranch in Wyoming before I enlisted. Name's Nathan Reed." "Army?" Caleb asked, noting the duffel. "Rangers, 10 years. There was no pride in Nathan's tone, just fact. Caleb knew enough to understand what that meant. Army Rangers were elite, trained for the toughest missions. "What brings you to Willow Creek?" Caleb asked. Nathan hesitated, then said, "Passing through, looking for something quiet." Caleb studied him. There was a weight in Nathan's eyes, a heaviness that spoke of hard experiences. But Caleb needed help, and his gut told him this man wasn't here to cause trouble. "Pays not much," Caleb said. "Room and board in the workers' cabin plus meals. It's small, but it's got what you need." Nathan nodded. "That'll do." They shook hands, Nathan's grip firm, his gaze direct. Caleb showed Nathan to the cabin, a one-room structure near the barn with a cot, a stove, and a small bathroom. It hadn't been used since Caleb's last worker left 3 years ago. "I'll get you some fresh sheets," Caleb said. "There's a town meeting tonight. We can head in, grab you some supplies after." Nathan set his duffel on the floor, the only possession he seemed to have. "Town meeting?" he asked. "Monthly thing," Caleb replied. "Mostly boring, local politics, budget stuff. But it'll let you meet folks. Stop the gossip before it starts." Willow Creek was small, and new faces always stirred curiosity. By afternoon, Caleb was impressed. Nathan worked hard, pruning dead branches from the apple trees with a quiet efficiency, needing little direction. He fixed a leaking irrigation line without being asked, his hands steady as he tightened the fittings. "You're good with tools?" Caleb observed. Nathan shrugged. "Had to be. Out there, if something breaks, you fix it or you don't make it." It was the first glimpse Nathan offered into his past, and Caleb didn't push. At the town meeting that evening, Nathan stood against the wall, scanning the room like he was mapping exits. The meeting was typical. Debates over road maintenance, complaints about kids sneaking into the old quarry. Afterward, Caleb introduced Nathan to a few locals. Some, like Sarah Miller, who ran the general store, were friendly. "Welcome to Willow Creek," she said, shaking Nathan's hand. "Stop by the store anytime." Others were more reserved. Tom Grayson, who owned the biggest cattle ranch in the county, eyed Nathan suspiciously. "Hiring now, Caleb?" he asked loudly. "Thought your orchard was one bad season from going under." Caleb kept his tone even. "Just needed an extra hand, Tom." Tom's gaze lingered on Nathan. "Where you from, stranger?" "Wyoming," Nathan replied, his face unreadable. "What brings you here?" Tom pressed. Caleb stepped in. "He's here to work, Tom. That's what matters." As they left, elderly Mrs. Carter, who'd been the town librarian for 40 years, pulled Caleb aside. "Be careful, Caleb," she whispered. "That man's got a shadow on him. I can feel it." Caleb patted her hand. "He's a veteran, Mrs. Carter. He's earned a chance." But he couldn't ignore the whispers, the sideways glances. Willow Creek had a long memory, scarred by a drifter who'd robbed a local farm a decade ago and disappeared into the night. Sheriff Laura Bennett approached as they headed out. "Caleb, a word?" She was a no-nonsense woman, a former MP who had been sheriff for 15 years. "You remember what happened with the Wilsons' farm in 14? She said quietly. "I'm not saying your guy's trouble, but folks are on edge. Stop by the station tomorrow. Let's chat." Nathan nodded. "Will do." The drive back was quiet. Nathan broke the silence as they pulled into the farm. "They don't want me here," Caleb sighed. "Some don't. Small town, they'll come around." Nathan looked at him. "I can move on if it's easier." Caleb shook his head. "I don't run my life by what others think. You're here to work, and you're doing a good job. That's enough for me." But as Caleb climbed into bed that night, he couldn't shake a nagging doubt. He knew almost nothing about Nathan Reed. The next morning, Caleb woke to the sound of hammering. Nathan was already up, repairing a broken gate near the orchard. "Been at it long?" Caleb asked. "Couple hours," Nathan replied, not pausing. "Saw it needed fixing." Caleb nodded, impressed. "Coffee's on when you're ready." Over breakfast, Caleb outlined the day's tasks, pruning more trees, checking the cider press for the upcoming harvest. "I've got to run into town for supplies," he said. "You should stop by the sheriff's like Laura asked." Nathan agreed, and they drove in separately. Caleb in his pickup, Nathan in an old Jeep he'd parked down the road the day before. In town, Caleb was loading fertilizer into his truck when Tom Grayson approached. "You're making a mistake, Caleb," he said without preamble. "That guy you hired? No one knows him. You even check his story?" Caleb secured the last bag. "He's a veteran who needs work. That's enough for me." Tom's eyes narrowed. "Veterans can be trouble too. You know what happened at the Wilsons? Drifter burned their barn, nearly took their house with it." Caleb's patience thinned. "Nathan's not a drifter, Tom. He's working hard. My orchard, my call." Tom shook his head. "Your funeral, Holt." At the diner, Nathan was waiting in a booth, his back to the wall, a cup of coffee in hand. He looked tense. "Sheriff okay?" Caleb asked, sliding in. "Fine," Nathan said, but offered nothing more. Jenny, the diner's owner, came over with coffee for Caleb. "How's our new farmhand?" she asked, smiling. "Heard you're a soldier." Nathan shifted uncomfortably. "Was. Just here to work." Jenny's son was in the National Guard, and she had a soft spot for veterans. "Well, you're welcome here," she said, before heading back to the counter. Caleb noticed a black SUV with tinted windows roll slowly past the diner. "Government plates," he muttered. "Not something you see around here." Nathan glanced up, saw the vehicle, and his entire demeanor changed. Shoulders tense, eyes sharp. Hand twitching toward his side as if reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "We should go," Nathan said, his voice flat. "Everything okay?" Caleb asked. Just remembered something I need to do at the farm, Nathan replied, already pulling cash for the bill. As they left, Caleb spotted a second SUV parked across the street. Two men in dark suits stood beside it, watching them. One spoke into a wrist device. They drove back separately, Nathan's Jeep staying close behind Caleb's truck, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. As they turned into the farm's long driveway, Caleb saw them. 3 black SUVs parked near the farmhouse, at least 6 men in tactical gear moving with military precision. These weren't locals. Nathan's Jeep pulled alongside Caleb's truck, and he gestured for Caleb to stop. They parked behind a cluster of trees out of sight. "Stay here," Nathan ordered, his voice low, commanding. The quiet farmhand was gone. This was a soldier. "Those are government plates," Caleb said. "FBI?" Nathan's jaw tightened. "Not FBI, Blackthorn Solutions, private security contractor." Caleb stared at him. "What's going on, Nathan?" For a moment, Nathan didn't answer, his eyes scanning the property. Then he sighed. "I'm sorry, Mr. Holt. This is my mess. They're after me." He pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "This has evidence, proof of Blackthorn's illegal ops. Human trafficking, arms deals, things they've done under government contracts. I was part of their team until I refused to follow orders. I took this and ran." Caleb's mind raced. "So you're not running from the law, you're running from them?" Nathan nodded. "They've got connections, high level. I tried to get this to the right people, but the first contact I made, a reporter, turned up dead. Accident, they said." Caleb took a deep breath. Armed men were on his land, threatening everything he'd built. "We can't take them on alone," he said. Nathan's eyes were hard. "I'll draw them off. This isn't your fight." Caleb shook his head. "They're on my property. That makes it my fight. There's a way into the barn through the back fields. We can get in, call for help." Nathan hesitated, then nodded. They moved through the orchard, using the trees for cover, staying low. The barn was old but sturdy, its loft offering a vantage point. Inside, they crouched behind a tractor, watching through a crack in the wall as the men searched the property. "I count 8, Nathan whispered. "Probably more in the house." Caleb dialed Sheriff Laura. "Laura, it's Caleb. I've got armed men on my farm. Not locals, private security. They're after Nathan. We're in the barn." Laura's voice was sharp. "Stay put. I'm 10 minutes out with deputies. I'll call in state police." Nathan looked skeptical. "She'll be outgunned. These guys are pros." Caleb's jaw set. "Laura was an MP. She can handle herself. We just need to hold them off." Nathan pulled a knife from his boot, his only weapon. "We're the distraction. Keep them focused here while your sheriff moves in." Caleb nodded, adrenaline surging. It had been years since he'd faced danger, but he'd grown up hunting in these hills. He knew how to stay calm. They waited, watching as the men approached the barn. The leader, a tall man with a shaved head and a cold stare, barked orders. "That's Marcus Kane," Nathan whispered, "Blackthorn's top enforcer." Caleb's phone buzzed. A text from Laura. "In position, west side. These guys armed?" Nathan nodded and Caleb texted back. "Yes. Dangerous." Nathan added, "Tell her we'll draw their attention from the east." Caleb relayed the message. They moved to the east side of the barn, Nathan kicking over a stack of crates to make noise. The men outside reacted instantly, converging on the sound. "Reed," Kane shouted, "we know you're in there. Give us the drive, and this ends easy." Nathan stepped into the open, hands raised. "I'm here, Kane," he called. Caleb stayed low, moving to the loft for a better view. He wasn't about to let Nathan face this alone. What happened next was chaos. Sheriff Laura and her deputies came in from the west, lights flashing, weapons drawn. "This is private property," Laura's voice boomed. "Drop your weapons." Kane's men hesitated, caught off guard. Then, from the main road, 2 military Humvees roared up, disgorging a team of soldiers in tactical gear. Their leader, a woman with captain's bars, approached Kane. "Marcus Kane, stand down," she ordered, holding up a folder. "This operation is over. We've got your files. Every illegal deal, Every payoff. You're done. Nathan stared, stunned. Captain Alvarez, he whispered. My old CO. Caleb watched as the soldiers moved with precision, disarming Kane's men. Alvarez approached Nathan, saluting him. Sorry it took so long, Lieutenant. We've been building a case. Your evidence sealed it. Nathan shook his head. I thought I was alone. Alvarez smiled. You were never alone. We just needed time. Kane and his men were cuffed as federal agents arrived, called in by Alvarez's team. Townspeople gathered, drawn by the commotion. Tom Grayson approached Caleb, wide-eyed. What the hell, Caleb? For once, Tom had no criticism, only shock. By evening, the SUVs were gone, replaced by news vans. The story broke nationally. A private contractor exposed, a whistleblower vindicated, a military team that backed him up. Caleb sat on his porch with Nathan, watching the sunset over the orchard. What now? Caleb asked. Nathan sighed. Hearings, trials, a lot of people are going down for this. He paused. After that, I don't know. Caleb nodded toward the orchard. There's always work here if you want it. Nathan looked at him. Why would you want me around after this? Caleb smiled. You did the right thing when it was hard, and you fixed that irrigation line in an hour. I need that. Nathan chuckled, the first real laugh Caleb had heard from him. The next morning, Nathan left with Alvarez's team for debriefings. As Caleb watched him go, a small crowd of townspeople gathered at the gate. Tom Grayson stepped forward. Town council met, he said. We're offering to help with your orchard, new trees, community fund. Caleb raised an eyebrow. That right? Tom nodded. For the man who helped a hero. 6 months later, the orchard was thriving, thanks to the town's support. Ben had a scholarship and the cabin had a new occupant. Nathan Reed, honourably discharged, back to work the land. On a crisp fall evening, they sat on the porch watching the harvest moon rise. Never thought I'd be a farmer, Nathan said. Caleb grinned. Never thought I'd hire a whistleblower. Life's funny that way.
If you enjoyed this story, drop a like and subscribe for more tales like this. Hit the bell, and we'll catch you in the next one.